Hello. Now this is the second video about good practices of requirements management. So what did we cover in the previous video? So in fact we looked at the first four and the remaining 5, 6, 7. I'll skip the fifth one for you to read later on in the handout, and I'll focus on the last two: maintaining requirements traceability and using requirements management tool. In fact, we have mentioned quite a lot about traceability. In the previous requirement specification module series, we talked about vertical and horizontal traceability, particularly between, when it comes to vertical, we mentioned about backward and forward traceability. I just wanted to put in a kind of a figure to use to make it a little bit more understandable. So if you're talking about solution requirements, functional, non-functional solution requirements, which are meant for designers, coders, and testers, and so on, for the remaining part of the project, we're talking about, when we talk about horizontal traceability, we're talking about traceability or linking solution requirements within themselves. Okay, when we are talking about vertical traceability and backward vertical traceability, for instance, for the solution requirements, we are referring to something like this. You take a solution requirement and map it or link it to a stakeholder user requirement, and you do the same thing, for instance, if you want to extend the scope of your traceability, and it's a good practice to do so, then you link it to your business requirements. And even, in fact, the entire set of requirements, which is like this box, red box, the requirements themselves, they can as well be linked to the business rules, a higher level, any kind of a statement, any kind of a, like the contract, for instance, or RFPs or regulations, policies, and so on. So they can be linked to those type of origins as well. And this is also one of the good practices of requirement specification, specifying requirements origin. When it comes to forward traceability, we can mention about the design, code, and tests. So you have the design components, you have the code itself implementing the design, and you have the test. So basically what you're trying to do is to kind of link all these components together to have a very clear, structured idea about what is linked with what. And what does it help us to do? It has a lot, in fact, to do. So first of all, it allows us to make a faster and simpler impact analysis. Okay, what does this mean? If anything changes anywhere, we'll be able to understand the other type of project concepts that will be influenced by that. Okay, for instance, if a business, a standard, a rule, a particular thing in a policy changes, we'll be able to understand the link through the traceability. We'll be able to understand which business requirements are impacted, or which stakeholder requirements are influenced or might be influenced, which solution requirements, design, code, and tests, and so on. So we'll be able to have a full visibility on which part is connected to which part. That is very important. It allows us to have a more reliable discovery of inconsistencies and gaps in the requirements. Something that I haven't mentioned in previous videos. It also allows us to understand whether we are complete. It helps us for completeness, in fact. How? For instance, if you're defining your solution requirements and linking them, you should make sure that all stakeholder requirements that you have defined at a higher level should be met by the solution requirements. I mean, if there is some sort of a user requirements that's hanged or like without any link to any kind of a solution requirement, then there's something missing there. Or if there is a solution requirement that's not linked to the user requirements, there is also a sign that either you have missed the user requirements, or you're doing some sort of a gold plating. You're inventing new solution requirements which might not be necessary. Okay, so it helps us to understand whether we are complete. The same goes for design. I mean, if you have a design that, or if you have a solution requirement that has not been linked to any kind of a design artifact component, then probably you're not implementing it. It gives us deeper insights into the scope and complexity of a change. Impact analysis, it's a reliable assessment of which requirements have been addressed and which have not. So again, the same thing, completeness. Okay, and I must admit, tool support to establish all these traceability is definitely necessary, particularly for large professional industry projects. Following not necessarily agile, but waterfall or incremental projects, which are quite a lot. It's a significant number of projects in practice are still following waterfall or incremental or something similar. Good. Now, the seventh one, the final, let's say, good practice of requirements management, using a requirements management tool. As I just mentioned, tool support is extremely important. Here it comes as a good practice as well. I mean, it's a good practice if you find yourself in a setting that I've just mentioned, large project, waterfall, incremental, then come on, you can't escape. Use a proper requirements management tool. Even if in small projects, it might be very, very useful. In agile projects, definitely you have to use some tools as well. They are in fact kind of like what happened at some point in time. Requirements management tools essentially some of the requirements management tools turned into a kind of agile management tools as well, I must admit. Traditional ones, IBM, Doors, I mean, it's still one of the best ones or the market leader. HPRM, Requirements Manager in Agile Manager, JAMA, Caliber, Modern Requirements are some of the tools that are still available in market that are being used. I mean, these requirements management tools come with a huge list of functionalities for you to manage requirements versions, changes, store requirements attributes, facilitate impact analysis. Like if you just select one requirement and you'll be able to see what type of requirements are impacted. Of course, if you establish traceability, identify missing extraneous requirements, meaning that, I mean, if you don't have any requirement that is linked to another requirement, or let's put it this way, if you have a user requirement that's not linked to a solution requirement, it's a kind of a hint that there's something wrong there. Track requirement status. In a previous video, I've shown you a kind of graph that shows the status of requirements implemented, verified, approved, and so on. And that's not possible if you're using Word or something. Communicate with stakeholder, control access, obviously, filter, generate, tailor, and so on. Some of them also allow you to model requirements, create some flowcharts, data diagrams, and activity diagrams, and state diagrams. They also allow you to use those type of things. Good. What is the current market right now? We are somewhere in 2020 right now, and this data dates back to a few years, like 2018 or so. But I don't expect a significant change that had happened in the last 2 years. So I think that these numbers are still valid. The most widely adopted tools for requirements. What would your guess be currently in the market? Which tool is the most frequently used one? I'm sorry to say, but it's Microsoft Word, or let's say the equivalent Google Docs. Almost 50% of the projects are following or using Google Docs. Microsoft Word or Google Docs word processing programs, and that's a bad idea, very bad idea. Just use something like free, open source. You have plenty. Anyway, what about the rest? You see that IBM doors is still the market leader, more than half of course, I mean, the remaining, when it comes to the market leader in the remaining, the rest. Doors, Serena Software, Micro Focus into HP, and other vendors. There's a nice link that you can look at later on that compares the requirements management tools. And basically that is it. That's the end of the part 2 for the good practice of requirements management. Good. It was fun. Difficult but fun. I wish you good luck for the rest of your education and career. See you later.